Greetings, Rebel fans. My name is Jason Kelly, and this is the Let's Run podcast. I want to welcome you all to the show today as we get ready for UNLV versus the Wyoming Cowboys at the Thomas and Mack Center. We are just about an hour and a half, a little bit less than that actually, from tip-off. I am getting ready to head down to the game, obviously. So I wanted to get a little live stream up before the game, just so we had some Rebel content for those of you who are maybe watching from home, or just driving down to the game, something to listen to. It's a fun game. It's a good game. The Rebels are coming off of a massive week, a week where even after the Utah State win, there was a lot of doubt about. Kevin Kruger. People thought maybe he would be fired mid-season. Obviously, that was not going to happen, the firing mid-season, but there were still people talking about it. There was several people thinking that the players had quit on the team and quit on the season. It just wasn't great. The vibes around the program were at near all-time lows. It felt like, the first year of Marvin Menzies again, and we were going to be awful and not competitive. What a difference 7 days can make. UNLV last Wednesday night at the Thomas and Mack defeated number 22 Utah State, handing them their first loss of the conference season. And then after that, go on the road to one of the hardest places to play in America, Viejas Arena in San Diego, California, and take down the San Diego State Aztecs, a place that the Rebels really haven't had a lot of success over the years. And now, at 2 losses, are tied for second place with Colorado State, are 1 game behind both New Mexico and Utah State for first place in the conference, and have positioned themselves really well to be competitive in the Mountain West. And it's a big if they can keep their positive momentum forward. And so let's break down this Wyoming Cowboys matchup. Let's talk a little bit about the teams. Let's talk about key players, and get into this matchup just because, it's a big opportunity for a letdown. This Saturday, UNLV is welcoming New Mexico into the Thomas and Mack. That's a great rivalry that we have with the Lobos. It's a rivalry where the Rebels have had a lot of success. The Cowboys are a team that UNLV has, historically done pretty well against. But ultimately, this Wyoming Cowboy team, they're good. They have good shots. They've got good players. Let's jump into the stats, break down the matchup, and look over the Wyoming Cowboys. So let's jump in. All right, so Wyoming's best player, Ken Palm thinks it's Obi Agbin. He's a 6'3" guard. He's kind of their lead player. Really good shooter from 3, averaging 45% on the year. Not a ton of attempts, not as many as you'd think for a lead guard, but efficient player, 56% from 2, 45% from 3. His free throw rate's pretty solid. Assist rate, not great, but it's okay. It's pretty good. Offensive rating, he's considered one of the more efficient because there's a ton of players in college basketball. He's a really solid lead guard. Another guy that I like a lot for Wyoming is Jordan Nesbitt. 6'6", not a great shooter, only 20% on the year, but an excellent defender. That 3-point percentage, 27%, I think it's a little misleading. I think he's a bit better than that. He's only shooting 33% from the field overall, but from 2. But he's a much better offensive player than that. Not a great shot blocker, but and his free throw rate again isn't super high, but he's a really solid player. So those are the 2 guys that I would look forward to stopping on the perimeter. They have a little bit of size. Cole Henry's from the little bit of Wyoming that I've watched. I haven't watched as much Wyoming as I would have liked. Cole Henry's really solid big. And then this is their starting center, Scotty Abube. I'm looking forward to seeing him and Bear kind of match up down low. But my favorite player overall is Kobe Newton. I mean, I believe he's a senior. I think this is his 5th year of eligibility. 37% from 3. Really solid player. Had offers to go to other colleges and decided to stick around Wyoming. Good dude. He's a really fun follow on social media as well. I would recommend that everybody follow Kobe Newton, the Wyoming player. He's great, and I think he's a player that historically can give a team like the Rebels a lot of trouble. This Wyoming team Jumping into their offense, not a great offense. They're 223rd in the country. The Rebel offense is actually shot up in efficiencies. Now we're in the top efficiency. Now we're in the top 100. The Wyoming defense, it's solid, but not spectacular. They're ranked 161st in the country. Not great, but slightly above average, that's for sure. The UNLV offense and defense, the offense is better than the defense right now, but the defense has been improving as of late. They are slow. Wyoming is very, and that's not uncommon for Wyoming. They play at a grind, kind of grind you out pace. Whereas UNLV is a little bit faster. So Wyoming will try and bring down the shot clock, get the best shot possible, control the possession length, and try and force UNLV into kind of a slow, kind of grind it down game. Turnover percentage wise, Wyoming does turn the ball over quite a bit. UNLV doesn't force a ton of turnovers though, so it's kind of a wash in that category. They're really not great at any single category. Their best category is technically their three-point shooting. They're at 35.6%. They're top 90 in the country, top 85 in the country in three-point percentage. So this Wyoming team can get hot, and they can keep the game really close because of that. So, this is a game where the Rebels should absolutely win. They absolutely should comfortably win, honestly. KenPom has this as a what's the margin here? KenPom has this as a 72-63 win for the Rebels, and I think that margin is really fair. And I think that's kind of what the Rebels should try and aim for, a comfortable win. But I think it's going to be a little bit closer than that. I put out my official score prediction on Twitter a couple hours ago. I had a 77-71 UNLV victory. It's going to be closer than comfort. Wyoming's going to hit some big shots, I think. But ultimately, I think the Rebels are going to, focus up in the last 10 minutes and do pretty well. It's going to be tough though. You might look at Wyoming, diving into Wyoming's season here. They played a lot of teams really close. They beat Reno basically to start their conference season. They beat Reno at home. Now Reno, has struggled in the Mountain West. In non-conference, they really didn't do very well against any teams of note. But their best performance was probably in conference play at Utah State. They played Utah State to a 70-67 loss, where they had a really good chance of winning that game. They were excellent in that Utah State game, hitting big shots, decent defense. They beat Reno. They played Boise State pretty close. 67-58 is a little misleading, and that game was a lot closer than you'd think. They only lost to New Mexico by 8 on the road. They were looking like a really dangerous team. And then these last couple of games, they lose to Colorado State by 16 at home. They get absolutely shellacked by Boise State in Boise. They've fallen off the wagon a little bit. And I know that UNLV, while we are coming off of a huge victory, we are certainly vulnerable to a good Wyoming performance and Wyoming coming into the Thomas and Mack and winning. So Kevin Kruger is going to have to keep his guys focused. Last year we were coming off of a lot of big victories. If you remember last year, I can pull it up. To open up conference play, we lost to San Diego State, but we beat New Mexico. We beat Boise State. We should have beat Utah State. And then, after a close loss to Air Force, to Colorado State on the road, we get blown out by Air Force at home. And this could be a similar spot as, to what the Rebels were in last year. Last year, great win at Boise, almost beat Colorado State. Great win over New Mexico. And then they just lay an egg. And so Kevin Kruger is going to have to keep his guys focused to prevent a similar kind of collapse happening in this game. Wyoming's good. They're not great. They're vulnerable. They certainly, I believe, on the defensive end, have some weak points that UNLV can definitely exploit. What I want to see from the Rebels this game, I'm going to give you a couple of keys to victory. I want to see a good Bear Cherry game. Big guy, strong, physical. I want to see him assert himself physically in the paint. I want to see him be confident and decisive with his dribbling. We keep waiting for Bear Cherry to return to that player that he was at the beginning of the year, and he just never has. And so I I want to see Bear Cherry be decisive. I want to see him rebound the ball. I want to see him get at least 6 or 7 rebounds. 8 or 9 is honestly preferable. Getting a good game out of Bear Cherry, I think, is key in this game because Wyoming is going to keep the pace slower. Next thing I want to see, I want to see UNLV not fall in love with a 3-point shot too early, and specifically guys like Jalen Bedford. I'm cool with Julian Rishwain, pulling up contested threes. That's his game. That's the kind of guy he is. That's the kind of player he is. But I want to see Jalen Bedford attack the rim. I want to see DJ Thomas attack the rim. Don't settle. This Wyoming defense is vulnerable. They're going to give you open threes, but don't always take them. Go to the basket. Generate open threes that way. The UNLV offense is really taking off. They've been shooting better from 3. They've been getting a great block rate. That's something that I had underrated about this team. Excuse me. They block a lot of shots. I want to see Pop and Bear really swat some shots. And this is something they're excelling at right now. They're 17th in block rate, and a lot of that is from Bear Cherry. Their steal rate has gone up a lot. They've been forcing more turnovers as of late. So there's some significant, and that's, remember a couple of years ago when Kevin Kruger had that very switchy team with guys like Vicky Walker and Elijah Harkless and David Malaka guarding the perimeter. That team liked to force a lot of steals, and I know that Kevin Kruger wants that to be his identity, and it hasn't been up until the last week. So can UNLV maintain that really kind of pestering steal defense? I think they can. I want to see Brooklyn Hicks get more minutes tonight. I want to see him. I think UNLV fans love him as a player. He's certainly my favorite Rebel right now. Obviously, DJ aside, I really love Brooklyn Hicks. I think he exemplifies everything that we want UNLV to be as a team. So I want to see Brooklyn Hicks get some good points, some good minutes tonight. Play aggressive, try and steal the ball. I've been impressed, honestly, with a guy like Julian Rishwain has been impressive on the defensive end over the last week. Early on in the season against Memphis, Memphis was switching their best player onto Julian Rishwain, and Rishwain was just getting cooked in one-on-one, defensive positioning. He was getting cooked. The guys were getting to the rim. It was getting Memphis good shots. It kind of lost us the Memphis game, but he has really turned up the heat on the defensive side of the ball, and I'm really happy with him. I hope we get some Jacob Barnaby minutes. I think Jacob brings energy, rebounding, tenacity that this team could really use. And I'm going to be looking out to see, how healthy Jalen Hill is. He didn't get as many minutes in that San Diego State game as I thought he would have, especially coming off of that Utah State performance that he was incredible in that Utah State game. And so I want to see, how is Jalen Hill? Is he going to be like the Jalen Hill against Utah State that kind of won us that game, especially when DJ was struggling that much? I guess that's to be seen. Jaden Henley, I want to see Jaden Henley run the point a little bit. He did play point guard in high school. That's been one of my favorite adjustments that UNLV has made this year, and I think that's something that Coach Kruger needs to go back to. It's something we saw in those first 3 conference games, and I want to see it again. So my prediction for this game was a 77-71 UNLV victory. I'm going to stick by that. I think that's what's going to happen. Again, these games, anybody can lose. UNLV was predicted to absolutely get blown out by San Diego State on the road, and we still went into Viejas and we won. So you never know what's going to happen in these college basketball games. But this is a big test, big game on Saturday. It's a trap spot, a dangerous, sneaky Wyoming team that's coming off of 2 pretty bad losses and is certainly going to want to make a point that they are still part of this conference race. Maybe not to win the conference or compete for the top 2 or 3, but to get a bye. That's where Wyoming's head's going to be. And UNLV has to respond accordingly and respect their opponent. So looking forward to this game. Go ahead and, in replies or, tweet at me your predictions of the game. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. I'm looking forward to getting in the car and heading down to the Thomas and Mack. I will be there. Again, if you're at the games, go ahead, shoot me a DM. I'd love to meet up with you, shake your hand. That's kind of what was Banana Man brings up a great point. I would love to see this offense when shots are falling. It's really fun. When you get Bedford, who's a good scorer, when you get Henley, who's a good scorer, maybe if DJ's shooting a bit better, we could see some pretty fun stuff. So I hope that we get a great UNLV offensive night tonight because the offense has been playing really well this last week. So I will see you guys at the Thomas and Mack. I appreciate you all, and let's run, Rebels.